Mother Shows Best by Skyheart. An episode of The Manehattan First by Little Jackie Papercut. Act 5, Little Moon Legacy. The mayor just stood at the base of the 5-step slate front porch for a while. No one seemed to dare to take a step closer towards the imposing popular doors that stood 5 ponies tall. That was, until 4 sets of hooves pushed Twilight's flank forward. She looked back at them with a "Why me?" face. They all answered in kind with a "This was your idea!" look. Plus one, "Do you think their garden has any morning glories?" look aways. Gulping down her anxiety, the lead approached the entryway. She took note of the thick, white-corded bell rope that hung over the side of the frame, reached a tentative hoof out, and slowly pulled down the ringer. The series of chimes that followed felt more like a cathedral's peal than a doorbell. After a long, drawn-out 20 seconds, the sliding of steel-lets could be heard, and the wall-like entry point creaked open several cracks. A stoic gray earth pony with a well-cut coiffure that was the only beginning to recede answered. He had a black and white suit, specially tailored, well-kept, and ironed on, and his cutie mark was a crossed hoof that had a white dust cloth with a rose folded neat over it. There was no hiding his age. He was clearly old enough to be a grandfather, but unlike most elderly ponies Twilight met, his back remained straight, leaving no hunched posture most his age would carry. His eyes were slightly bagged, but held no gaze. His green irises retained their steely focus of alertness. His wrinkles were shallow, but compassed more muscle than fat underneath the skin, making his features musclet pilot and soft, like the grooves of a weathered mountain ridge. Heck, if it wasn't for his suit, he probably looked more like a retired guards pony than a domestic service. "How can I be of service to you?" He calmly addressed her in the same passive tone Twilight experienced from Moonlight. Yes. Is this where the Lulumoon family lives?" Twilight asked with much politeness he could muster. "It is indeed," the Satyr replied, never once moving the door he held further open or closed by even a smidgen. "I am Silver Platter, chamberlain of the Lulumoon stable. What can I do for you?" Twilight plucked up her nerve as the first moment of truth came. "We'd like to speak with Lady Moonlight, if you please." Without even raising an eyebrow, the butler cast a discerning eye over the 5 mares. "And who is it that I will be announcing to her ladyship?" Twilight chose her next words carefully. "Twilight Sparkle, of Table Twilight, and her friends Honeydew, Orange Sherbet, Blossomforth, and Octavia Medley." Again, a deep silence hung over them, as he seemingly judged every aspect of the characters. "Very well," he said at last. It was only then did the doors creak widely open, finally beckoning them into the dimly lit darkness. The crib took a better look and view of their surroundings, as their eyes adjusted to the half-brightness. The interior was certainly more modern-looking than the outside, but there was still a large impressive antiquity of the decor. Twilight noted the self-lighting magic candle lamps that hung symmetrically from the walls. These were the old kind, used by high-ranking mages of the classical era. A flight of twin stairs from either side of the central corridor led the way up of the wide antechamber to the second-floor balcony, where a large Palladian window provided the only opening for sunlight to enter. There was not a speck of hardwood or linoleum covering the ground floor. The polished onyx tiles with long, silver-trimmed rugs that acted like a path from one hall to the next. A mighty brass chandelier completed the entrance hall, its holders curved in the shape of crescent moons. "Please wait here while I inform the mistress of your arrival." With that, Silver Platter ascended the left staircase and was gone, leaving the 5 of them alone in the big empty chambers of the Lulumoon mansion. "I'm guessing they don't entertain much for guests," Sherbet finally ventured, as he took note of the most decorative object in the room to be a lone stand against the archway into the west hall, too small to hold anything but a tingle, shiny ceramic vase. "I'm guessing they don't have many guests," Honey said. "Take a look at all these portraits." Every pony looked to the sides of each flight of stairs. Pictures of various unicorns, poised, regal, and majestic, gazed down on their admirers impassively. Honey lifted off the ground to inspect the framework. "There's definitely an age difference in the pastel covering. Some of these have only hung for a few decades, while others here are centuries old." These must be all the household predecessors," Twilight deduced. "Incredible! This entire hallway must be like one giant genealogy tree." She stopped at one with an elderly blue mare with a long smoke-white mane. This one seemed different than all the others. She held a genuine smile. It was one of pride, grace like most of the others. It also seemed to project warmth, as if she wanted to like everyone that would look at her picture in the future. What really set her apart, though, to Twilight and the others as they gathered around, was her cutie mark. While many of the others displayed cosmic bodies, symbols of power and magic, or even legendary parchment and tones, hers was a pair of split-covered comedy and tragedy theater masks, comedy overlapping tragedy. It was a cutie mark that no doubtly related to one of the performing arts.
This seems different than from the rest.
Blessed stated the obvious as usual.
I wonder who this particular pony was to the Little Moons.
Octavia thought out loud.
That would be the stable's most previous matriarch, the late Helena Quartermoon Lulamoon.
Ah! The Marisol jumped a step back from the silver platter, but seemingly returned and got into the center of the circle without any pony noticing. The butler continued regardless.
Mistress Moonlight is attending to some important work in her study. She says she will finish within the hour and speak with you then. In the meantime, you have her permission to wander about the mountain freely, so long as you do not disturb anything. Will there be anything else?
No, that'll be fine, Twilight said, so unsure as how this Earth pony was able to sneak up this close on all of them unnoticed.
Very well. I have household duties to attend to, but if you have need of assistance, please do not hesitate to call.
Silver Powder then briskly escalated to the main corridor. Permission to wander about freely. That had to be the most abstract term of make yourselves at home I've ever heard, Honey surmised. She then looked at Twilight. So now what? Well, we have about an hour. I guess we could look for Trixie.
Oh, I got an idea. Let's split up, gang.
Boastful exclaimed. Wow, we'll do that. Sever asked.
'Cause that's what the heroes are supposed to do in all the movies I've seen. Being spooky, old-timey house, pictures that seem to watch you, a gaggle of family members and staff that have various degrees of mystery and creepiness, a group of 5 in search of a pony. All we're missing is a specter haunting the place that needs to be unmasked. Look, I even brought Puppy. Hi, I'm Puppy's Files. Can you see my mom?
Do we have to use the Hackney catchphrases like chickies or zoiks? Deadpan, Honey. Joking aside, perhaps there is some merit to Boastful's proposal, Octavia suggested. Sometimes it is cliché because it is practical. This is a rather large place for one pony to cover. In addition, one of our objectives is to learn as much about the Little Moons as possible, which we could do more individually than as a group. Plus, on the personal note, she trailed off and glanced back at Helena's portrait from the corners of her eyes. There are some mysteries that I think need solving. Twilight thought for a bit, then nodded. Okay, Octavia, Auntie, you take the east wing. Daring, Blossomforth, take out the other end. I'll look around upstairs. If we don't run into each other before the hour's up, we meet back here and trade notes.
Tell me, Octavia.
Serpent asked her partner as they marched down a long hallway with doors on one side, paned windows on the other, decorative suits of armor in the gaps between.
What exactly does it mean there were some mysteries surrounding the Little Moons?
When we first met Moonlight, she made it clear to us that her disdain in using magic for thespian purposes. The cells explained, and yet her mother, the only authority that was above her, bought a talent that seamlessly falls under those lines at first glance. There's undoubtedly a connection here that we do not know yet. Well, that is rather peculiar, Server agreed. Well, how do you suggest we go about finding it out? I can only assume it's the safest easier for the layer involved. Which is why we look for another family to ask. Octavia opened one of the doors and entered what be a hobby room. There was a shelf with a few scrapbooks of coins, stamps, and other memorabilia. On scattered tables were various train sets and model buildings. The windowsill was cluttered with bonsai mini-ships and bottles, and over a slanted desk, a series of scriptures on a stone tablet with a magnifying glass, was a unicorn stallion of deep turquoise and pale silver. His body rested in a bedroom. And it appears our search is over. The pair approached the stallion from behind, though if it came from any other direction, it probably wouldn't matter. He was clearly still engrossed in emphasis that he wasn't aware of his surroundings. Orange Serpent decided to make the first move.
Pardon, my good sir.
Huh? What? The startled stallion jerked up, almost dropping his lens.
Silver, you know I don't like it when you sneak up on me and here of all play.
He then took notice of the two mares standing before him. as opposed to his dutiful servant.
Oh, hello there. Wasn't expecting company, but you probably already guessed that from my attire.
It's quite all right. This is your home after all, Cerberus replied. Are you the father of this household?
That I am.
He placed his magnifying glass aside and flicked his stray hair down.
You may call me Starshine.
Delighted, I'm Lord Servant, and I am Octavia. Starshine seemed to scrutinize the latter for a moment. Then his eyes lit up.
Ah, up on Cliff. How charming. Haven't socialized with one of those since the last Canterlot garden party.
Octavia thought back. Does she have Helena by her side? The question was answered with a nod. That was most likely my sister, Sympathy. We alternate soirees.
Well met. So, tell me, what's the occasion of your visit?
We're close friends of your daughter, Cerberus explained, and Leaf has some concerns concerning recent events that have surrounded her. Perhaps you could answer a few questions regarding them?
By all means, let's make ourselves a bit more comfortable, shall we?
He guided the two over to the quartet of lounge chairs. As the pair seated themselves, he took the liberty of extending his back legs over the ottoman, pulled out a pipe and fez.
Before we begin, he started, might I ask you a question first? To which of my daughters are you referring to?
Octavia and Servant looked to each other in great surprise. Which? Trixie? You know, guys, they said which. Why do I feel cold? Twilight roamed the darkened corridors, just sporting small marble pedestals of lioness-like figurines. So far, her investigation had proved fruitless. The first 3 rooms had been a locked vault, a cleaning closet, and an empty one with nothing but mirrors for some reason, all void of any clues or points of vital importance. There has to be something up here that can help me understand this family better, or at least help find Trixie. Another door down the hall came up, and he hoped there was at least some pony behind it. What he found, however, was bare. They have their own library? Twilight's face lit up in a squeamish grin as he trotted around the 5 shelves of textbooks. First, the library. Perfect. There had to be something here that could give her insight to the machinations of this clan. Deciding to start with a particularly large green one on top, he gripped it for magic, only to find it was wedged pretty tightly into rows. Aggravating itself against the inertia with her hooves, she gave it a little monogrease, and it popped out, like the entire roll with its coiled spring. Twilight yelled to cover her head against the book avalanche that buried her. Digging her out, her ears twitched to hear the sound of a mocking laugh. A fan of heavy reading, much. Craning her head around, Twilight saw a natural unicorn mare walk out from a silhouetted corner of shadows. Trixie? But Twilight's lady grin was faded as the mare came into light. Again, why am I shivering? Yes, this mare bore a very striking resemblance to her friend, but her coat was slightly darker, and her mane slightly lighter and a bit more wavy, combed back from behind her head. She wore a dark gray vest, resembling a business suit, although there were some alterations in ornaments here to give it a more lighter class uniqueness, and on the black horseshoes that gleamed in the reading light. But the biggest difference Twilight could ascertain were her eyes. The 2 purple orbs fixated on her were completely unlike the mirthful and teasing ones of her friend. There was no glitter of playfulness or tint of compassion. These cold, calculated, condescending eyes were like moonlight, analyzing anything and everything about them, addressing their target to its soul, reading them, and seeing what could be used towards the mare's advantage, and hers alone. Twilight couldn't help but instinctively shuffle and scooted back with her pile. As the mare got closer, Twilight could make out her cutie mark. A red heart with 3 chess pieces in it, 2 pawns, and a queen. You're not Trixie. The Trixie look-alike did not answer her directly, but circled around her instead like a prowling cat. So, you are Twilight Sparkle, firstborn mare of the stable of Twilight, personal protege to Princess Celestia, and holder of the element of magic. How do you know who I am? Twilight's head twisted around, following the circling mare, not daring to ever break eye contact as she would pounce the moment she went away. I make it my business to know everything that goes on about my family. The other unicorn stated know-it-all fatly. Friends, allies, adversaries. She leaned in close, bearing a smile of thinly veiled conceit. After all, that's why you're here, isn't it? To find out about us? What role does each of them play? And what rules do they play it by? What skill sets do they have? What do they like? What do they hate? What do they want? What are they planning? And what are their motives? Because if you know what they know, you can act on it and see that things go your way in the great scheme of things. She finally broke away, a smug sense of satisfaction on her face as her deep violet aura unearthed her guest and reshuffled the entire roll. Knowledge is power, you know. Twilight could not help but feel a chill down her spine. I am too, as if that last sentence had been emphasized just for her. Who are you? Her haunting comforter returned about. See, I know you, but you don't know me. Therefore, I possess an asset over you, in which you can only have if I shall allow it. Advantage. Checker, Monarch, Lunamoon. Second daughter of Moonlight and Starshine, Lunamoon. Bum 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 bum! Bum 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 bum! Da da da! Bum 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 bum! Wow. Didn't expect the Empire theme. Well, we would have brought in Back in Black or Welcome to Hell, but we couldn't afford it. Yeep. Twice seemed a tad vexed in how this checker introduced herself. It was clear she had every intention of doing so, but had to do so in a fashion as she had won a game or something. She attempted to defuse the situation by pushing the subject along. Oh, so you're Trixie's little sister? Only by about 11 months, Checker remarked. A rather insignificant amount when you consider the accomplishments performed within the time frame for any of her time. Well, wait, what? Twilight suddenly got a feeling that particular turn of phrase meant she was a slight. Are you insinuating something about Trixie? Not so much as the implication as it is fact. I've always been the better sister, regardless of age. Checker held herself up faintly. I actually graduated Canterlot School for Gifted Unicorns, for one. Plus, I pretty much run everything that my mother doesn't. The only real reason Trixie's back at all is to be the mother's little figurehead. Not that she ever done any real responsibilities before she left either. I was bouncing Dad's checkbooks and sweet-talking foreign dignitaries, while she was out playing with her glitters and glamours. That's why I was riled. Trixie may not be important to you, but she is to us. And just because she's not a super powerful mage like you or your mother doesn't make her magic any less special. Her spells may seem easy and childish to you, but I'll bet every book in my personal collection you could never make them the same way she does. Checker didn't even try to feign shame. I don't doubt that, and I never said it wasn't important to me. I simply said that my goal is greater than hers. It's always good to have a lesser to compare yourself to, and of course, you can't win a game unless you have all the pieces in play. But the pieces?! Twilight nearly drove a hoof through the floor. I can't believe you! At least Moonlight had the decency to not declare her intentions in the most demeaning and obnoxious manner. All you other Lulamoons seem to care about is power, and that's because the only thing you seem to think the world revolves around. Friendship is not some bargaining chip or capital investment. Magic is more than just power and prestige. And ponies are not pieces or tokens you can use as you please in some sick, twisted design that you nobles think is nothing but a game. Checker flung a devious gleam Twilight's way as he moved to a small table outside. Oh, but it is a game, Twilight Sparkle. Life is a game, filled with winners and losers, and unless you start learning how to play this one and fast, you're going to be one of the latter. A checkerboard then appeared on said table, along with two small boxes containing a set of white and black chess pieces. But I digress. Arguing here and now isn't going to accomplish anything for either of us. Let's not have our first encounter end on the wrong hoof, shall we? I know you're waiting for Mother. So how about a little friendly game of strategy to pass the time, It's been quite a while since I've had an intellectual challenge.
Todd was smart enough to know in this situation. She chose to sit down and play checker. It became much more than a game to both of them. Even so, she would not back down. Not when Trixie was on the line. And judging by the smile checker wore, she knew it too.
Oh, guys, speaking of Checker Monarch, what if in the getting back on your host verse, when Starlight's trying to make a new friend, Checker tries to manipulate Starlight? Come on, you can see it coming, she would! That's odd. Twilight observed as Checker soared to pieces on the board before her. You're giving me the white set? I thought you said you'd take every advance available to you. Oh. Checker seemed mildly amused. You believe in the first move advantage, do you? It's a valid game based on statistics. White win counts have been recorded to be about 6 more % than black wins. Checker rested the tips of her hose together at the level of her mouth. So the books say, Twilight Sparkle. If indeed you do think your first move will decide the match, then go ahead. Make your move. Trying to psych me out already? For some point you claim to be a master manipulator. You sure are transparent a lot. Pawn to d4!
Trixie! Oh, y'all free.
Blossom Force's face echoed across the Canterlot hallway. Maybe it was the fact that this was the 5th time she called in a row, or the fact that she had a small grin on her face, but Honey was pretty sure Blossomforth was more interested in the reverberating noise that accompanied her every call than actually looking for their friend. Frankly, in her defense, it was the most entertaining thing to be found in this narrow hall. What could be confounded throughout the long hallway, winding corridors, so far was creepy portrait one after another, and the occasional dresser or cabinet that used to decorate the place. Finally, they found another door to the side as the path before them split. What could be behind door number 1? The archaeologist thought out loud, pressed the door open. Her companion oohed at the several large basins built into the ground before them.
Wow, they have their own swimming pool.
Honey felt the floor and tapped the rock beneath them. Actually, Blossom, given the slight warmth of the stone beneath us, it stands to reason that there is a furnace directly below, meant to heat them when there's water in there. I believe we found the family bathhouse. She looked to the side and confirmed the theory by finding a small changing room with various toiletries. Blossomforth's awe apparently hadn't diminished.
They have all this for their own bathroom? All I've got is a shower head, so having their body wash, and a rubber ducky.
It's not a common practice except in Napon these days, but in the olden days, bathing was considered a group activity, so baths had to be built big enough to accommodate all members of a family at once. Honey began to go off on another of her historical tangents. These units were mostly costly to build and more work to maintain than single ones, so only the richer ones pursued this particular eccentricity. Still, no putting in question your builds these things anymore. This place must be older than I thought if it has one of these, and in working condition too, it appears. Having finished her lesson, she pulled Blossomforth away from the fancy merman faucet on the past side. Well, nothing else of interest here. Let's double back and try the other corridor. The two paying aside peeked into another room that almost made entirely of domed glass and had a perfect view of the gardens outside. A solarium. Must be a recent addition to this building, since they weren't conceived until the turn of the last century. Another door pressed downward steps, leading to darkness, and portraying faint wisps of very stimulating smells. Oops! Must be the path to the old wine cellar. Blossomforth sniffed the air with deep breaths.
And judging by the nutmeg to black paper ratio, that's old bacon smelling. So they must have a spice kissing down there, too.
Hey, blinked. One day, we're gonna have to get that nose tested to see what kind of plant you can't smell!
Well, it's my cutie mark.
Two long galleries, they chanced upon a room in the southwest tower. After turning the glass knob, Honey and Blossomforth found themselves in a somewhat small circular room that had more curtains than a wall. A cell for horseshoes, a cell for jewelry, and a dress hanger that guarded the sides of a canopy bed with silken sheets. It looks like some pony's boudoir.
Boudoir?
Honey turned her head back to Blossomforth. It's a Prince term. Basically a mix of a dressing room and a bedroom. Who's there? Both heads turned to see a shadow behind the dressing screen near the window.
Jinkies! Somebody else is here beside us.
Honey glared at Blossomforth.
What?
C.S. returned.
He just said I see it.
The figure stepped up from behind the screen. The pony behind it, widening her eyes into two tours. Blossomforth? Daring? Confusion struck to Pegasi. Who was this dolled-up mare, and how did he know? Wait, Honey stared past layers of lace and frills that decorated her skirt, and the braided tresses atop of a failed headdress. It looked like a butterfly was on top of the mane. Keep laughing, rear boy, keep laughing! The ridiculously poofy sleeves and the chest of the sunken jeweled body, ribbon hair, tight hose, and the pearl fantasies of an eyeshadow head blast. That's it! Trixie's getting the hammer! Trixie? Honey's mouth gaped at the conclusions she drew from the almost unrecognizable mare. Blossomforth reacted in a different manner, though. Her fan lip could not hold it no longer.
What's that ridiculous? Get it, Trixie. Don't get me wrong. Your old hat and cape was already flashy and going to a point, but this is just gaudy. You look like a wedding cake with legs.
Actually, this is pretty traditional Canterlot style for mares of the upper class to wear. Honey allies. 7th century design, I presume. You were correct the first time, daring, Trixie said. She tucked a bit around the waistline and grunted in discomfort. A Blossomforth is correct all over. This scarce excuse for a dress couldn't appeal to even the most esoteric of fashionistas. You're right. Even I find this revolting. Blossomforth cocked her head.
You don't like wearing that outfit?
I loathe it with every fiber of my being. Plus, this corset is killing me! Then why are you wearing it? Honey asked. Trixie's eyes seemed to somber up, and dull as they looked at Honey, around now even carrying the faintest of a smile. Because, daring, it's as you said. It's what I'm supposed to wear as a noble. She turned to Blossomforth. More to the point, why are you here in the manor, let alone Canterlot?
Oh, yeah.
The white Pegasus grabbed her as her friend by the hose, thus to drag her foot.
We're here to spring you, Trixie.
What? Trixie then found her posterior being pushed along by the other Pegasus. Yeah, we're going to have some chit-chat with your mom. And this time, she's going to listen to us. So come on, distance us and meet the others in the foyer. We'll have you back at Manehattan by sundown. Daring! Blossomforth! Stop! The Pegasus pair lost their footing and fell forward in the stunning rooting of her friend's hooves. Pulling themselves back up, they looked at Trixie with confused expressions. I'm sorry you came here for nothing, but I'm staying here in Canterlot. I chose this. Huh? I also went even further for the second shock.
But, what's it?
How did... Don't...
Why?
Blossomforth finished for Honey. Trixie turned down the hall and started to distance herself from the two. Because there's no point in leaving. Honey and Blossomforth looked at each other with worried faces. Back to the azure bundle of melancholy they thought their friend was sauntering away from. They immediately ran after her and sank in corner. Hey, Trixie, wait!
Oh, that's Trixie.
Well, that does sound like my moonlight. Never one to resist going all out on even the simplest of tasks. Starshine pulled his pipe away from his mouth for the moment. He chewed a hot full of cashews. He went for the pole next to him, one by one. You seem quite unperturbed to know your wife has forcefully abused her near nigh-sided contrast with her kin, and uprooted her from a livelihood that she was more than content with. Our servant seemed rather inquisitive, with her host continuous docile demeanor, throughout her and Octavia's explanation. Starshine seemed pleasant enough. There was certainly nothing cold or stiff about his quaint smile. On the contrary, it was actually a bit inviting. But if he really was admirable as he seemed, how could he not show that much concern that there's something so serious happening amongst his family? As a mere mare, it actually baffles me to some point that any stallion would find common enough ground with a lady like her to even hold a decent conversation with, let alone start a family. Oh, you just don't know my dearest the same way I do.
He replied in kind, with a knowing smile and slow shake of his head.
Almost nobody does. But there's almost an entirely different side to Moonlight's face he never shows. I can see it's there, though. After so many years of being with her, I'd be blind not to show it.
He put his pipe back in, blowing a slow, solitary bubble from it.
Pop! You may not realize it yet, but my family is by far the greatest thing my wife treasures above all else. She just loves her daughters with all her heart. She just has a very different way of showing it.
His heart lit up, expanding the bubble and placing the image of a memory inside.
But I've seen it. For the day I was betrothed to her first pregnancy, I've witnessed hints that prove to me beyond a shadow of a doubt that she is the most compassionate mare I've ever met.
Betrothed? There raised an eyebrow from both mares.
Well, yes.
The bubbles showed a larger, younger version of himself in moonlight, almost as young as Foles, facing each other in the palace's grand ballroom, on a moonlight eve in front of their respective elders.
The ponies of my family were the Galaxies, owners of one of the most prominent magic technology firms in the capital, Star Industries. It was the most useful beneficiary arrangement between business and nobility class.
So would you have a laboratory called Star Labs? You're still upset over the flash finale. How could it end like that?
My side would gain their prestige and title, and hers would replenish their coffers of old money with our new money.
Octavia nodded knowingly. The Von Cliffs had been long-standing members of the Canterlot mercantile clan as well, so she knew all too well about unspoken traditions of arranged marriages here. In fact, it brought back a memory of a coupling her parents tried with her during her fillyhood with one of her dreams. Of course, that had been before she met Vinyl, so, well, thankfully, it only lasted 3 weeks before both sides agreed to break it off. But doesn't that mean you weighed out obligation, not out love? Sever asked. It's just like, how shall I say it? Nelson chose me to be his wife.
And I chose Moonlight. Starshine returned simply. Well, I guess you could say she chose me, since she was the one with the list of suitors, but I was the only one who tried to get her to pick. The other stallions soon turned to each other, easier ladies to woo in the coming years, but I courted only her, because I did indeed fall in love with her.
The scene in the bubble shifted to a moonlight night, where 2 children exited a large amphitheater, with an orange-red stallion leading them to a carriage.
It was perhaps 2 months after we were first introduced when it started. We had just finished seeing a midnight performance of the Glass Hour.
The image changed violently as the stallion fell onto the cobblestones with a blackened eye as the carriage was pulled off the darkened streets and turned into one of the unlit alleyways.
When all of a sudden, the driver threw my father off as he finished buckling us in, and sped off into the undertone of the city. It was then I got a good look at the ponies pulling our carriage. I realized these were not the same ones that brought us to the theater early in that night. We had been hijacked.
The quote clicked in his seat, seeing nothing more than print pricks.
Apparently, we were going to be ransomed to our families for half a fortune, and if they didn't pay, well, I had heard stories from places like Detroit, but never thought they would happen here. Needless to say, I was a ball of nerves, and the fact that our horns and legs were bound only furthered my panic. But Moonlight, when I looked at her, she was a rock. Not a twitch, not a tear, not a heart in her throat, only a stone-cold line on her lips. And what little movement she could do, she clasped my hoof with hers, making my shivers stop. The memory continued on in a soft delight. I don't know what it was in those rose-tipped eyes of hers, but keeping in with contact with them kept me calm. It kept me calm when we stopped at the abandoned air lot on the most isolated edge of the city. It kept me calm when they threw us into the brig of a rickety old airship bound for parts unknown. It kept me calm when the hull rocked like there was an earthquake in the sky, and I could hear blasts of gunpowder and shots of air beasts outside.
My light changed to a clearing at the base of Canterlot Mountain, where the airship was down and a swarming of Pegasi clad in a golden barding of the Royal Guard.
The full nappers never had a chance to succeed, not in Canterlot at least. As fast and conferred as they were, they severely underestimated how quickly the guards could be rallied, or how heavily armed they all could be. All it took was a single-century senior airship making an unscheduled takeoff across the outer wall, and they were done.
A brown and black squadron led the thugs out of some wreckage and chains, while a white pair carefully carried the now unbound foals from the other side of their backs. As they sat down on the side of the road to await Terry as he could be seen coming down the mountain in the distance, the filly leaned to Cole's side, eyes squeezed shut. It was then I realized I felt her against my withers. She was shaking. She had refused to give our captors the benefit of her fear. Her pride would not allow her to show weakness to those that didn't deserve to see it. And now that it was over, she let it all out. She seemed so strong back there, and now I was seeing she had been just as helpless and scared as I was. That one moment, she was a filly like any other her age, one that needed me to lean on. The bubble began to huscot through rapidly progressing ages. It intrigued me, it did. How a lady like her could be so strong and so weak and all at once. It made me watch her more closely. And because of that, I saw things about her no other suitor of hers did. How she would take the weakest moon lily out of her garden and pot it by itself, so it could grow without competition. Then replant in the exact same spot when it was healthy enough to compete. How she always dueled at the academy on the outside grounds, facing away from the school walls to minimize damage. How she had her servants sub for her only with vendors and with families. She was the night blooming serious, stiff, guarded, and indomitable, yet only at the liliest of times, for a rare fleeting moment, blooming like any other flower. And every flower has its frailty, its kindness, its love. It would need a special somebody to confide in all those soft moments, no matter how brief. The young mare that was Moonlight, Rizal Hoof, lit a black witch moth, too sunk to the rain to fly from the street, covered in a windowsill, where it wouldn't get tramped on. She touched the hoof of another, creating an equally drenched little moth. Her eyes slapped away to silvering ones, and gazed back at her softly. As the only stallion that ever waited long enough to see her bloom in tenderness, how could I let it be any pony else but me? Octavia and Sherbert could only stare in wonder at the bubble as it faded back to its near completion. The way Starshine had portrayed his life, getting to know Moonlight, it almost made her seem, well, normal. But then why? Why did it seem like she was the center of such arcane dysfunction in this family? How was forcing such inflexible and intolerant ideals onto her children any way of expressing how deeply she cared for them? A puzzle cannot be solved so long as there is a missing piece, Octavia muttered to herself, as she had a sneaky suspicion what that piece was. Meanwhile, the stallion reached the bowl for another nut. Oh, empty. Well, at least I get to change my selection now. He levitated several jars out from the mini pantry that was on the wall's bottom corner. What do you think? Walnuts or chestnuts? Walnuts sound good, suggested Sherbert.
I was thinking that way too,
Starshine said as he revealed the bowl.
But I'll need my cracker for those. Rattlers, so...
Ah! The mare suddenly let down the chairs when they noticed Silver Platter, suddenly standing right between their individual seats, with set appliance and hoof. Where did you come from? Octavia asked.
The room's entrance, of course,
He hopefully replied with indifference. But Octavia looked at the now open doors. Not a sound, she whispered.
Yes, it's a little bit of talent that Silver Platter of ours has,
Starshine affirmed heartily.
Always good for a surprise.
He detected the desired tool waved him off.
That'll be all for now. Very well, sir.
And he was gone. Blinking back to their conversation, Octavia and Sherbert resumed pressing into their next issue the most. Perhaps you could tell us about another individual of this family we'd like to know more about. A noisy crack shattered the room tranquilly for a brief moment before Starshine addressed him, with the edible seed nestled tastefully between his molars.
Certainly. Who do you have in mind?
Her mother, Helena Lulumoon. A knight to b4. Rook to e6. Pawn to c7. Queen takes bishop at a3. Bishop takes rook at f5. Pawn to e3. The war was at a fever pitch as decisions were made within seconds between the two strategists. Both Twilight and Checkered had units immersed deep within the enemy lines, and a constant sway of offense and defense had a pace falling almost every 5 turns. But the game's conversation wasn't just a set of commands each turn. No, Each move reflected a bigger debate between the mayors. Knight takes pawn at e3. You're out of pawns now. Checker arched an eyebrow at Twilight. So, they're only pawns. Queen to a4. Pawns are the body of the army. The fact that I have all of them means I have over half of your forces. You've only managed to capture 3 of mine. Rook to d1. A ton of weaklings are still weaklings. Pawns aren't meant to battle. The only role of the lesser skilled is to make the greater skilled roles easier. Knight takes knight at e3. I still have all the pieces I need, whereas you, Twilight, lost your queen within the first 10 rounds. Twilight hit her little smirk. Just because someone starts weak doesn't mean they stay weak. All they need is a little help, a friend to guide them along, and support their endeavors. Pawn promotes at c8. She then replaced her pawn at the end of the board with her more powerful unit. Every pawn has the potential to become a queen. Check! Checker did not hide a returning smirk. But not every situation is so ideal and rewarding for the little hard worker. Just because she makes it to top doesn't mean there will be room at the top. What happens then? She will be robbed of her prosperity and knocked back to the bottom before she even has a chance. Rook to f8. Check! Huh? Wait, how's that check? All she did was block her. Then Twilight saw it. Right behind where the black castle had been sat Checker's bishop. Moving it to guard her king, giving it a right shot at Twilight's king. In fact, that piece had been poised to check her king for almost 15 turns when she did the math. Why didn't she move it earlier? She could have easily forced Twilight to real fair and fortify formations, instead of clearing a line for her pawn to. That was it. She was waiting for her pawn to reach the end of the board. The bishop was never meant to trap her king. It was meant to trap her pawn. Her pawn that she gave up 3 other pawns and a rook to guard. That had just become a queen was about to corner the enemy king. If she moved the king out of the bishop's way, in the next turn the rook would take her new queen. She could easily take the rook first, but not while her king was in check. Wait, she had a pawn positioned right in the range. She could then take out the bishop and then... No! This still wouldn't work. Checker's rook would still take her queen. There was no way out of it. Her queen was pinned. All that work to get it, and now it was gone. And if she gets knocked down, she finally admitted. If we could just help her get back up again. Pawn takes bishop at g6! Checker's grand lion. As long as I'm playing with the same result. Rook takes queen at c8.
Trixie, wait a moment.
Blossom 4 finally managed to catch sight of her overdressed friend, who had come to stop at the wide hall full of pedestals and various objects mounted on them. Several were even hanging from the wall next to the occasional picture. White bangs had skidded onto the marble tiles as she overshot her target, and nearly knocked over a vial of some kind of liquid hold to the high column she smashed into.
Step around here does not go away on waxing,
she said to herself as she turned over her back and moved more cautiously towards Trixie.
Oh, look at all those knickknacks. What is this place?
Honey, who had been taking a bit less rust than her friend, took in the artifacts on display without the additional benefit of getting to know the forebear. A gallery. Should have known. Every noble house has to have at least one of these. I know it's perfectly legal, but I still can't be a bit more miffed that the tilted mares and stallions would pay millions of bits to have priceless relics added to some private collection where no party can look and learn from. Actually, none of these artifacts were brought, Trixie said. Each and every one of these items had belonged to my family the moment they were made. What? Honey reeled back in surprise. Trixie proceeded to clarify. This room is to showcase the works and accomplishments of every professional mage in the lineage has done. Honey inspected the magical tools that displayed more closely. As he did, her eyes lit up with wonder. An eye of the abyss? A world tree charm? Is that a flask of living silver? My Faust, these are some of the most potent magical objects in the history of mankind. That is, if any of them still had any power left inside. Heck, no one knows how to craft half over these things anymore. Trixie's, your ancestors were complete whizzes at wizardry. Her enthusiasm trailed off once he noticed Trixie was staring glumly at one of the empty glass cases. Whenever I come in here, I always thought I'd get to place some mystic item of my own among these someday. I had it all pictured out. The big boomer. It would be the ultimate pyrotech. A full-fledged spectacle of every color that would fill the entire sky and last for hours! And you could light it as many times as you wanted. I was so stupid back then. To think that such a thing could ever be allowed to share a room with these. Boastful scooted over to Trixie's side, leaning over in a mild apprehension.
Gee, Trixie, you don't have any happy memories in this house?
Trixie lulled her head down and pulled it back up with weakest a smile. Well, there were the stories.
What stories?
Both Pegasus asked at the same time. My grandmother's stories, back when she was still alive. My grandmother, she was a kind mare, a thoughtful mare. Her eyes had the kind of zeal you would usually find in a vole, and yet her tone was always so mature. Whenever I walked the halls with her, she would always regale me with fantastic stories of my ancestors, old plays and folklore, especially her exploits of her globe-trotting days when she was young. The little Astrophilia eyed a ruby ring with edges curved circular, like a ram's horn on a pillow pedestal, just barely able to peek over the edge of her tippy tubes.
Oh, that's a pretty one.
That's the ring of Aries. The elderly mare spoke from beside her. It belonged to your great-great-great-great-granduncle, Comet Light. He used it to beat the Minotaur and the little snake when they literally butted heads with one another.
You beat the Minotaur with this? Does it still work?
Helia's horn glowed as it darkened the room and painted out the quivering light. Only for him. You see, the ring is as ordinary as any other one. It holds no special power. For him, though, it served as a symbolic vessel for his pact with the Zodiac warrior, Aries.
Zodiac warriors. Those were the princess's 12 immortal champions, right?
Indeed, but he dwelled in a realm from ours. The constellations in the sky, serving as the doorway between our worlds. Comet Light was a skilled ancestral wizard. He used his mastery to open Aries' door for but the tiniest moment. In that brief meeting between Pony and Celestial Spirit, Comet Light asked for a contract with Aries, and this ring was the physical object that binded said contract. So long as he wore it, and the conditions of the pact were met, he could tap into Aries' unstoppable taunting power.
What conditions?
Helena gave a chuckle as he painted their ancestor in a more vibrant light. Well, there were certain promises he had to fulfill in the Zodiac's name, some of which were tacitly. For example, he had to get at least one garment of wool on whenever he went out, and he couldn't eat any sort of bread unless it was left out in the sun for over 30 minutes. Trixie giggled in tandem with her grandmother, and the sight of Stallion was sweating in the summer heat with a wool cap on his head. Beatrix, you don't honestly believe that nonsense story, do you? Trixie lowered herself from the platform to look square in the eye with her sister.
Why is it nonsense?
Because the Zodiac warriors don't exist, that's why. After all, what would the princess need with 12 powerful heroes when she's already all-powerful?
They do exist!
No, they don't. Yes, they do, because Grandma said so. No, they don't, because Mother said so. No. The lady stuck a hoof between their puffed-up faces. No need to get all hostile over a story. That's not what they're meant for. Trixie's palm lingered long enough to ask a question.
But who's right, you or Mom?
Her mane was strongly charged over. Trixie, Checker. Doesn't it really matter who's right or who's wrong here? Your mother is a very wise mare, and she has ample reason to agree with me on everything. And it's perfectly fine to let her choose her own beliefs. Just like you could choose to rethink my tale of fact or fiction. But none of them takes away from the appeal of my story, now does it? Trixie nodded dutifully, while Checkers huffled a hoof. I guess not. Helena smiled at the youngest granddaughter. Tell you what, What did you pick out the item in the gallery you want to know about this time? I'll see that it becomes a fable you both like.
Tigger smiled, her argument largely behind her son.
Okay. But how about this one? Artebor's epoch orb. Got to the events behind that one. She was a seer, and while most seers use their magic to gaze glimpses of the future, she was only interested in one point. When I felt down, especially after feeling another lesson from Mother, I would always count on her to put the smile back on my face. In the confines of the bed chamber, the retired matriarch snows daily siesta with her luxurious canopy bed. She stirred, however, when her door cracked open, and a sniveling little filly shuffled in as quietly as he could. Trixie, is that you? She shuffled against the bedside without a word, scooting underneath them miserably. Helena just smiled as he levitated her up and onto her sheets. Come on now, a crawling lady like yourself shouldn't bury herself in self-pity. Tell me what's wrong. Trixie lowered her head level to the mattress, and her grandmother struck in hoof. Checker beat me at mouth casting again. Helena chuckled. Oh, Trixie, you know your mother's magic lessons aren't a competition. It is to her, she grumbled back. And Mom knows I haven't won once. She let her leave early while I had to do it for 5 more times. Why doesn't she like me? Oh, Trixie, she loves you to pieces. She just has a different way of showing it. No, she doesn't. All she does is scold me for trying. Why can't you teach me instead? You never nag me. My little trickster. I could never deprive my daughter of the opportunity to pass on all she has learned and enjoy to her own teaching is a learning expression of in itself, the successes and mistakes. But I'm just a failure to her, Trixie continued to whine. And what is wrong with that? Helena's horn began to light up as she began to paint another story. Some of the greatest things in history are failures. Did you know that ether, one of Starshow's greatest discovery, was a failure? It was? Oh, yes. According to the Scriptures, ether's discovery was Starshow's attempt to combine the 4 basic elements to create a super-element that had all 4 of their properties. But ether wasn't hot like fire, solid as earth, soluble like water, or light as air. It had no other characteristics, intangible to change, and completely useless for what he had planned. But because it was this mysterious 5th element behaved differently from the other 4, that it made 2 things none of them could. It defied physical law the other 4 elements were bound to, opening an entirely new branch of magic that could be studied and called celestial magic. It is that very same failure that allows Princess Celestia to raise the sun and moon each day, you know. She swirled her fetlock around her granddaughter's horn. Suppose what I'm saying is, if you can't get results you want with moonlight's magic this way, maybe you should find a new way. Trixie furrowed her brow in confusion. I don't know how. That's the thing with making new spells. You never know what will happen. That's the magic of its own, too, of course. Studying the expression on her filly's face, the elder mare could tell she had lost her. Tell you what, I can't tell Moonlight to stop or change the lessons with you. But if you want, I can show you how to do a few tricks you never even bothered to learn from me. Would you like that? Trixie started to nod vigorously. Can you show me how to make those pretty neon lights you tell your stories? Why, certainly, my little trickster. It's just a little trick with colors that actually involves conjuring some light motes. Slade certainly sounds like the affliction of Meyer. Orange Sherbert sipped from a glass of iced tea. Quite! Starshine looked fondly at the vulnerable image of his mother-in-law. She was perhaps the only pony in Equestria that could bring out the elusive smile from Moonlight better than I. Curious. There was no animosity of any kind between the two?
Octavia asked. Far from it. Helena was the light of her life. She could never be cross at her.
Yet, she deplores the life she represented. The mystery deepens even further. Just what's the castle link we're missing?
Starshine's face grimaced slowly and quietly. That, I'm afraid, is one of the more somber stories of the Little Moons. She did not always think the theater it shows trivial and insignificant. Helena had a long-standing love for the performing arts, and throughout her life as head of the Little Moon stable, she used her status to endorse quite a few unsuccessful playwrights and amphitheaters. Like how she entertained our daughters, she did so with her daughter the same way. As you might have guessed, presentation and glamour spells are her forte, a prestigious skill set for any thespian. Problem was, she was among the most in-circle nobility, too, and any lord or lady who dedicated more time to anything other than the affairs of court were considered easy targets. The pair of mayors looked at each other with uncertainty. Lady targets? For what? Servant finally ventured, though she feared she already knew the answer. The unicorn stallion hardened his face to the most serious expression they had seen on him so far, as his pipes bubbled darkened over the glow of his horn, ready to protect another memory. Scandal! It was only a year and a half since our official ceremony of matrimony, and Moonlight was just barely pregnant with our first daughter. She had taken us to the newly built Vanguard Auditorium to see the premiere of one of her favorite plays, Flight of the Spring Breezy. It was actually a performance that was very growing in popularity at the time. Add to it a christening of a brand new performance hall, and you had a very few of the higher houses attending just for the sake of appearances. The eighth mayor in memory was talking to the distressed stallion in the private corner of the reception lobby. She was close friends with the stage manager, and the night he confided in her that both one of the acting leads and her understudy had taken ill. The show was in danger of being cancelled. Nodding understandingly, Helena gestured to herself, and her friend lit up, hugging her. The scene then switched over to her coming out of a dressing room in a fancy costume with antennae and transparent wings. Helena knew the play by heart and volunteered to fill in. Wasn't the first time she helped in such a direct manner. She often assists struggling newcomers rehearse lines or stage shows set up. The theater community often considered her their godmother for it. She stood on the stage with the other cast members, while her daughter and Starshine sat in the front rows with the other dignitaries. The performance went flawlessly with her at the helm. She even covered several mistakes the other actors made. Then came the final song. As he stood on top of the grove stump, a rope snapped, and a sandbag came crashing down on her, bathing her in tomato paste. The breezy queen changing seasons now looked like a psychotic high school filly from Shetland King's novel. Like the cat, she was met with raucous laughter from the audience. She fell victim to a trap from the lead's jealous understudy, a very poor and mortifying circumstance for any performer. But for a noble, in front of her other nobles no less, it was even worse. Helena, however, smiled through the mocking laughter, and finished the song as nothing happened. As the curtain closed, Starshine was among the few who applauded weakly. Moonlight, however, looked at the amused and smug faces of her peers, and dilation of her pupils, the only thing betraying her stone-cold expression to shock. Helena was a plucky enough mare, though. She shrugged it off with a laugh of her own, knowing full well the ponies really cared about, and who cared about her went in mind. Sadly, my dear Moonlight did not stare that insight. I saw her look among her privileged peers, the same peers that she would one way consult and exchange ideas with as successor to her stable, who seemed to respect her mother for her long-standing peerage and title, so long as they turned to respect her, and how they now reacted with glee to such humiliation that came with the performance. She could already hear their whispers. A senile old mare more suited to wear grease paint at children's parties than handle tax reservations. Helena became a joke to other nobles, and she was all but shut out with any serious decisions, unable to weigh in or have her opinion taken seriously. The hearsay buzzed around the ears of every upper-class pony, and Canterlot, months afterwards, only furthered her contempt for what she believed ruined her mother. When Helena's life as a reputable noble died, her daughter's love for the arts died with it. The bubble finally popped as the lead salmons faded to black. "How horrible," Servant murmured. Wasn't long after that when Moonlight pressed to have her successor date moved up and retire her mother, allowing her to live the rest of her days away from the den of snakes that were her rival stables as much as possible. Starshine finished. Helena didn't mind. In fact, it freed up her time to help raise her grandchildren while Moonlight was in the courts, establishing her own name. Shamefully, she never could convince her to go or allow her children to go to a theatrical, musical, or any sort of entertaining performance ever again.
It all makes sense now, the Archmajor surmised. Any daughter will think the world of her mother, and when that world came crashing down, she blamed the cause of it. That's why she dislikes non-practical applications of magic, and was so against Trixie's pursuits of showmanship. She fears her child following the same footsteps her mother took on Disastrous land. Celestius knows I'll do anything to keep my tangerine from falling into the wrong herd. Suspicion of words is the most potent poison of the mind, Octavius cited. We cannot fault the Moon Knight for doing what she thinks will bring least angles to her progeny, no matter how unpenitent her apprehension of Candace. Yeah, Sever agreed. It's all natural to think of having an entertainer, but eventually only end in slime. But Helena didn't held her head high regardless. Seems the only one who truly felt that same night die was Moonlight. What could we possibly do to make her think otherwise? And whether or not Trixie shares the same fate as her grandmother, it won't be as devastating as she's led herself to believe.
That, ladies, is a conundrum I've waited the answer for years. But having seen no solution before me after so long, the best I myself can do is stay by her side and weather her concerns together. Starshine tapped his host together at the bridge of his nose. Perhaps, though, Beatrix's return could change things. I can see you're perplexed.
Yeah, taking note of the mayor's expressions.
You see, Helena traveled the world in her early years, absorbing the experiences of many things not found in Canterlot. It's those globe-trotting experiences that allowed her to give her daughter that inner smile in the first place. And our firstborn daughter is the only pony in our family that has ever stepped outside of Canterlot extensively in 15 years. A wild card may be the only thing that can be a game changer at this point. After all, she brought you here. What other surprise may came through her?
Octavia and Orange Sherbet nodded at each other. The hidden message was clear to them. It was Trixie that had to change Moonlight's view. She was probably the only one who could. It was just then that the grandfather across her room rang upon the hour.
Well, it appeared that the work day for my wife is over. Starshine has moved to get up. She's always tops that 4 on the dot, no matter what issue it is. So she should be ready for you momentarily. Why don't I give you the rest of scrambling around and lead you to her office?
What's a blast? The pair said in unison. Well, enough reminiscing. Let's get you back to Manehattan. Trixie hung her head away from Honey. I already told you, there's no point! What do you mean there's no point? The archgoddess exclaimed. Don't you want your life back? The never-dressed unicorn stared steelly into her friend's eyes. Was it ever really my life? She waved a hoof at the once powerful artifact facing a door in the hallway around them. Look at those magic works! She put her head around the other way, pointing to the wrinkled profile painting. Look at those portraits! She revealed up and freed her host, who asked her wildly. Every single one of them has led the exact same kind of lifestyle, with the exact kind of magics. Here, in Canterlot! Why? Because it was what they were meant to do! It was best for them! Every little moon ever born was an aristocrat, traditional in magic, and traditional in manner! Her eyes fell upon the empty frame not been melted yet. Why should I have been any different? How could I have been any different? 15 long years. I thought every choice I made was my own. But it was all an illusion. It was the will of my mother that let me go. It was the will of House Lulamoon. That's the true curse of nobility. You're not defined by your individuality, but by your stable. That's why she was always right. Because it wasn't best for her, or me, or any one pony. It was the best for family. Her head drooped down in resignation. So, even if I could leave without her say, even if she couldn't control me, it still wouldn't matter. Staying here, supporting Mother, that's what's best for the Lulamoons. So, it's what's best for me, too. The pair stood there, expressions blank, as the dust shut down. This was not the Trixie they had been expecting to find. They were staring, for the first time in their lives, at a pony that had truly and completely given up. How could he possibly save the pony? It didn't even want to be saved. Did Did she even need saving? This thought had not crossed her minds until now. Trixie was the legal heir to everything here, so one day she would have to take over all this stuff anyways, right? Could Moonlight taking her back under her hoof actually be what was best for her in the long run? And if so, should they succeed in their original goal, wouldn't that make them the kidnappers?
Well, we can at least let all of us talk with her first. Maybe we can work out something entirely.
Pleasant Voice suggested.
Well, at least get the rest of us to talk with you.
You're free guests in this house, Trixie relented. Honey and I over at Blossom Forth. Right, let's regroup with the others before we think of anything else.
Okay, so did Twilight send me with her upstairs or back at the entrance again?
Blossom Forth's last sentence suddenly galvanized their downturn fight into panic. Twilight's upstairs. The Pegasus gave a loop back to pull her muzzle away from the unicorns.
Huh? Yeah, why? Is there something up there she shouldn't mess with?
Trixie's mouth turned to a dot, whispering a single word. Ticker! Then she was off. The Pegasus took their cue to resume their chase. Hey, Trixie, wait!
Not again.
Queen takes pawn at d5. You're going to lose. Sparkle. You do know you're not going to succeed in your mission here, don't you? She was toying with her. Twilight just knew it. She had been only using the queen for the last 12 turns and 3 captures. Not since he had much left aside from that. A rook and a knight. But checker didn't move either so long. They weren't even guarded or being guarded. I just have to get rid of that queen. Then I have a chance. How do you figure that? It's not over yet. Pawn to a4. You're still not playing the game right. The minute you walked in, you haven't been playing it right. Queen to a5. Twilight was too engrossed in setting up her trap to retort. Knight to f3. You think it'll all be over, and you'll have your Princess Trixie back the minute you win Mother. Checker continued. That's never going to happen. You two got the wrong order of things. It's not her you had to convince, but all of Canterlot. Queen takes pawn at a4. Bishop to d3. What are you talking about? Only Moonlight has power over Trixie. I know there's no ancient rule that can give absolute authority over somebody else's child, noble or not. There's more to every rule than what is written on parchment. Queen to d1, especially to those who make them. Knight to e5. That's fundamentally impossible. Every rule has the exact same restrictions and privileges to every pony regardless of status. Checker simply grinned. Ever heard of following the letter of the law, but not the spirit? The rules may serve as a great equalizer for the game, but they're only as equal as every pony's understanding of them. Just because the rest of the stables can't influence your friend, doesn't mean they can't influence those who can, or influence those who influence her influences. Queen takes bishop at d3. What are you saying? That my friends and family could be convinced to keep Trixie here? I think you'll find our friendship to be stronger than any bribe or threat of you nobles can make. Knight takes queen to d3. Gotcha. Perhaps, but what about 10? Or 20? Or 100? Did you know that while Manehattan's weather department is a university-funded organization, the financial distribution of its budget is handled by the city's federal committee, which answers to the Cloudsdale Council, who addresses the needs of each of the shareholders of their industries, where 3 of the major ones happen to be families right here in Canterlot. Oh, and if I recall, all museums are considered public property, meaning that no one else can own it, except our national government or trustee of it. I suppose that means most of the money for its exhibits comes out of the pockets of its policymakers, too. In concert halls, I do believe, 3/4 of all their endorsers and critics are also lobbyists for our country's policymakers, though I'm sure they'd be happy to provide something other than their hard-earned bits to push their ideas forward. Speaking of bits, the Orange Conglomerate today seems to be in violation of several antitrust laws that were repealed half a century ago. But I'm certain enough votes from the inner court could have the rules reinstated. There'd be massive layoffs, corporate buyouts that follow, but that's the price for one pays of regulation and competition. You see, Twilight, Sparkle, when you fight one noble, you fight them all. That's the irrefutable truth. A truth that you and your companions clearly aren't prepared for. You're the minority here, and that's because you haven't convinced the majority of what you want is what they want. What they don't want, they don't like. And when the majority doesn't take your notions, you make more enemies than you do friends here. And those enemies can make your friends your enemies. And they can make their friends your enemies too. And before you know it, she swung her rook in a defining arc against the knight. A malicious gleam across her eyes. You're all alone. Rook takes knight at d3. Checkmate. What? No! That's not checkmate! Checker smiled away widened. It might as well be. Take a closer look at the board. Sparkle! Twilight scanned the board, stupefied to her opponent's statement. It wasn't checkmate. It wasn't even check. Her king was safely out of the reach of any of Checker's pieces at the edge of the board. And then it dawned on her. Her king was the only remaining piece. Yes, she finally managed to end the queen's reign of terror on the board. But as long as Checker had at least one other piece on the field, she would be eventually able to corner and mate Twilight's helpless king. It was one against the rest. And a king couldn't win by itself. Checker was right. There was no way Twilight could beat her now. Her opponent had won through sheer dominance. I lost. The thought still swam sporadically through Twilight's head. How could she let such a neophyte way lose her pass? In retrospect, her memory recalled a different famous strategies she could have easily countered the ones Checker played out, but she hadn't done them. Dizzy recalled her arguments with Checker while she played. The words they'd invented reflecting their movements on the board. Checker had psychologically affected her judgment in playing. The more control she had gained in the conversation, the more control she had over the board. This is how nobles operate, she realized. Their biggest weapon isn't their wealth or their titles, it's their words. Twilight! Get away from her! The beaten mare snapped out of her humble stupor to regard the trio that bounded in her room, the one more frantic than the others. Twilight immediately rekindled her smile as he recognized who it was. Trixie! Hers the comfort was quickly overwhelmed when she did instead, pulling her away from the table and bringing the two sisters face to face. Checker! I swear, if you did anything to her... Oh, but my dear Beatrix, why must you assume I'll always have to get you? Because you are! Trixie spat back with a smugly grinning face. It's always been that way, and it hasn't stopped being that way the minute I walked back in here. So why should it stop now? Touché, Checker simply said with a shrug. But in this case, I was actually helping Miss Sparkle by giving her a taste of what she was planning to go up against. I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy milking it, though. I take you wanted to avoid any of us meeting this one, Honey inferred. The moment she drew attention for the conversation, Checker breezed past her sister as he was there, and circled the two pig aside the same way she did Twilight. So, these are your other friends. The Blossom 4th Bearer of Loyalty, Manehattan Junior Weather Cadet, 3rd Division, graduated Cloud Steel Technical with a Bachelor's in Weather Engineering, and a double minor in Mechanics and Botany. Honeydew, Bearer of Honesty, Archaeology major at Canterlot University, 10-year excavator, 5-year career at the Equestrian Museum of Supernatural History. Of course, that's not what your friends call you by.
Oh, can you guess my weight too?
Blossom 4 asked. Checker eyed the obvious grin and Pegasus held and chuckled. Yes, I can simply see why my sister would make friends with you. I thought I heard voices coming from this room. First, the library was starting to get too crowded as another trio walked in. Ma, isn't regular all right? Sever said before she noted who it was amongst the crowd. Trixie, darling, so good to see you in. Trixie? No, Auntie. I believe that was the other daughter Starshine said he had. Auntie corrected. Hello, Father.
Well, it seems I wasn't the only one entertaining guests today.
He surmised, looking at the pieces on the board. Another one of your famous chess matches, checkmate? Yes, Father. The hunting mare politely beamed. And as always, I won.
I suppose this means you'll want your usual victory snack?
He asked. Check her chapter 10, as if pretending to sigh. Indeed, nothing complements the thrill of triumph like the victor spoils. I'm thinking artichoke bites with goat cheese dripping this time.
Exquisite choice, your young mistress.
Yeah! Every non-Little Moon jumped back from the empty space that was now filled by the stoic silver platter, presenting a silver dish with a aforementioned treat. Punctual, as always, Silver. Trixie said with a roll of her eyes. Thank you, Jeeves. Clicker quipped as she took only one piece from the tray, mostly with her hope to take the rest of the way. The others, meanwhile, were still trying to process on how the agonic butler stuck up on him again. The fact that his appearance was from the other end of the doorway only made it more difficult to wrap around. What the heck did he do? Honey whispered out loud. Crawl up from under the bookshelves? In that moment, the stallion turned to address him.
In addition, Mistress Moonlight is ready for you. If you would please follow me to the training hall.
It was only 2/4 of a corridor down from where they had gathered, but in the dimly lit halls it felt longer. The room they entered at the end of the walk could be best described as a mix between classroom and dojo. A chalkboard with an accompanying rack of scrolls hung out against the royal blue wallpaper. A line of fancy rapiers, arching equipment, and channeling rods stacked neatly against the mirrored wall. Postured weights and braces complemented the vacant space between an alchemist's cauldron and a runestone array. And in the center, imposing a regal as always, stood the matriarch of the house of Little Moon. Silver Platter was the first to break the silence.
I have brought them as requested, mistress.
You are dismissed, Cyril. Midnight ordered, with equal straightforwardness.
By your leave.
The room was one stallion less. Twilight looked back at her friends. Although they silent you first. Twilight raised a hoof. Before she could sit down and step forward, Moonlight raised one of her own by the knee. Beatrix, checkmate, a lesson review. The two Little Moon daughters walked forward past the stunned Twilight, across the room until they stood in a perfect triangle from their mother. The two mayors spectating at the edge of the line didn't have an inkling what to make of this, until Moonlight's horn glowed, and a sealed barrier developed the trio. The Cosmos Pia. The pair immediately lit up their horns, and too many volcanoes were about to raid them. Sublime, scintillating sparks! A chain of lightning loops around her horns in a spiral, striking the target's Moonlight materialized. Holy's breath! Green vapors caused the potted ferns summoned to go completely limp. Damascus skin! Pattern grew steel highs accomplishing them with several darts as they were bounced off. Twilight recognized the range of spells he was seeing. These are from the 4th century school in Bakuto, Class A dueling spells. Moonlight was able to initiate these spells into Trixie in only a week. Or perhaps Trixie already knew these spells but never practiced them. As the last spell faded, Moonlight's horn winked, and the damage to the room winked away just as fast. Checkmate. Laudable spell strength from last time. Beatrix! Your casting time has only shown 0.2 milliseconds improvement. Lower it by 0.5 next time. The two mayors bowed to their mother gracefully. It was then Moonlight finally announced the others' presence. What's your soul? She began as he walked towards the Manehattan Ice. It's the standard of magic. Every Little Moon is brought up to uphold. Magic of grace, power, and dignity. For unicorns, the exercise and utilization of spells is the very core of their being. As such, how they learn and practice their magic extends outwards and reflects upon all other aspects of their existence. Talents, poise, mannerisms, respect, all are a measure of a command in magic. When someone is giving a pause to breathe, she glided out into the hall, ushering everyone to follow. The hallway seemed to darken more in the direction she led them, finally stopping in front of two midnight blue double doors filled with real silver lining. Moonlight dropped the other horseshoe. What else could be the pinnacle of such virtuoso force than a princess? Twilight and the others gasped at the sight as they saw the doorway open before them. A dark and grand hall welcomed them. with walls and ceilings that could easily be mistaken for a night sky, glittering with beautiful constellations. And standing at the far end was a statue of Obsidian, features adorned with black onyx and gold beryl. It was a statue of Princess Luna, not the yearling from when they first saw her when they freed her from Nightmare Moon, but her true majestic shape, full power and beauty. Very old paintings complemented the midnight tapestry on sides, paintings of her, the regalia of her own castle, a vast, untarnished difference from the ruins they were now, accompanied by the various mares and stallions, each one in a painting, bearing the same crescent moon emblem on their robes. The Lulamons were more than just noble savants to Princess Luna. We were her right half at one point. Among her advisers, her confidants, we were the servant children of the night. We few of us stayed in to help the night, but its mysteries are magic, secret. Even when she fled the darkness, we did not descend to the same madness like the Astrians, nor did we abandon her doctrines and love as to the tides. We held true to her blessings, loyal not to our ideas, but what they represented. When Celestia ended the era of darkness, only 3 families of the Lunars in the circle remained. We were those 3. We consented to keep our heads low to the end of the fear of the night. We agreed to let time heal the wounds, to let the name of Luna fade into obscurity for the greater good. But we would not forget. We acted as erasers of her existence, but as her keepers. We took the records, the depictions, secrets, and hid them away safely. For like her sister, we knew there would come a time when she would be needed again. A time when the Princess of the Night's name would be spoken freely. A time when our separatist dreams will return to our rightful place. Wise, benevolent, and guiding. So you immediately turned abruptly to face Twilight. And now that time has finally come! 1,000 years of absence, and our loyalty and dedication to her has remained steadfast and unwavering as ever. Princess Luna is about to retake her place on the throne of Equestria by her sister's side, and the Lulamons will soon be by her side once more as well, guiding her into this new age as she guided us for so many a generation. And I will not allow anyone, save the princess herself, to deny the reward our family has waited so long for. Recognition of our legacy, and not just a stable, but the stable of the moon! She then turned away, proceeding to leave the hall behind her. This is what I need my family for. This is what I will have my family for. All of it. She passed by her respective members of her family, calling them one by one to follow. Come, Starshine. Yes, dear. Checkmate at once, mother. Beatrix, how super proud to see our guest out. The rest of the family disappeared into the hall. Trixie stopped at the edge of the doorway to look at Twilight with sad, resigned eyes. Go back to Manehattan, Twilight Sparkle. There's nothing left for you here. But, Trixie... The Great and Powerful Trixie is gone! Spat Flay spat. Now there's only Beatrix and Midsummer Moon. The second heir to the House of Moon, scion of the original stables. She turned away and hummed hello. And that's all I'll ever be from now on. And so Twilight and her friends could do nothing but want and despair, as Beatrix and Moon disappeared from their sights and into the shadows after her mother. Shining armor trotted to his home, sports caps on his head, and a pennant sticking behind his ears. His saddlebag also contained a model train set plus conductor's cap, as well as a leftovers box from Private Pansy's Pizzeria. A little baby dragon sat on his back, from one finger bone claw, he was waffle cone in the other. That was definitely some long overdue bonding between bros, Spike said, his lips richly decorated a rocky road. You could say that again. Best day off ever. His adoptive big brother concurred, remembering to wipe his hose before entering. Wonder if Twilight has a good day as we did bringing her friend back. He stopped short of the living room, though, peeking over his head. Spike soon saw why. Well, isn't this a familiar sight? He groaned to himself as he took note of the 5 mares draped over the living room forms her, on their stomachs and backs with pathetic, half-dead looks in his faces. I take it things didn't go well as previously hoped. Twilight's BBBFF ventured. Not even close. His LSBFF mumbled, not even bothering to lift her face up from the couch cushion. Nightlight and twilight velvet came from the kitchen. A pitcher of iced tea and glasses on Huff. Sorry, Pumpkin. It was a long shot best anyways. The Lulamoos have always been the most traditional staples since the construction of Canterlot. I actually doubt anything less than a royal decree could have convinced Moonlight to let go of Trixie, what with the current situation surrounding Princess Luna.
This really sucks now,
Fossilforth grumbled, her hose wrapped around the throat pillow.
Lulamoos don't want Trixie to leave. The other nobles don't want Trixie to leave. Even Trixie doesn't want Trixie to leave now. It's like this whole city's against us for some odd reason.
Seems like there's nothing we can do at this point. As long as Princess Luna remains a hot topic for the nation, I'll tell them any poet here is going to want to keep their hose off of nobles, even the Slavs related to her. And to think, this all got started for some dumb, archaic, almost non-existent law, Honey groused. Twilight's head turned to the side, gears began to turn in her head.
It's not you who had to convince, but all of Canterlot.
Princess Luna, even was the nobles, even the slightest relation to her. The family title of Twilight is still a staple of Canterlot in name. That's it! She suddenly exclaimed at the top of her lungs. Every pony jumped, hearts nearly beating out of their chests. What is Twilight? What is it? Octavia asked. Checker's right. I've been going about this all wrong. If I'm ever going to have equal hoping against Moonlight, I have to beat her at her own game. She turned to her father. Dad, Sable Lord's meeting. It's tomorrow evening at the palace, right?
That's right, Pumpkin. Tomorrow at 7 p.m.
And every stable of Equestria will be in attendance?
As far as I know, yes.
Then I'm going with you. Every pony looked at one another, not entirely sure what Twilight was going with this.
What are you hoping to do, Twilight?
Shining Armor asked at last. Twilight looked to her friends and family with a scheming grin, full of determination. If the Lulamoons won't buzz on this issue, then I'm taking this case to court. The royal court!
This blows, big time.
Baz rolled around on her bed, bored out of her skull.
A new city to explore, tons of new cutie marketing opportunities, but stuck cooked up here like a bunch of tailboats.
Well, that's all of us. Planet's Mom was nice enough to let us take along on our errands today, Firecracker said.
Well, that is true. Tangerine agreed, crossing out a list of items she wore on Spider-Pen's notebook with her quill. We got to try to be cutie mark crusader green grousers, jewel appraisers, praying freshers, bag tailors, dustbusters, and we did get smooth through these afterwards.
Yeah. But I'm talking about the neat stuff we could be doing here. More digging, gem mine, can dusting, but no. We gotta be punished for trying to do something good. But how can they be for sure we won't be able to help Trixie?
I still want to do something to save her, Firecracker admitted. But what if we knew something about those mean nobles' plans?
Hey, girls!
Featherweight skidded into the room, excitement buzzed over her face. You never guess what I just overheard in the living room!